If you're watching this, chances are you are probably itching for an upgrade or just curious to see what Apple is offering this year. We are going to check out every single model on the market, starting with the 16e, flying through the air and ending up with the mighty 17 Pro Max. We can assure you that by the end of this video, you will know for sure if it is time to drop some cash or if you should stick with what you have for just a little bit longer. As always, we'll take a deep dive into everything that matters: design, display, battery, performance, and of course, cameras. Hey, I'm Olive, your host here at Versus.com. Alright, let's break down these models as simply as possible so you know exactly which one to grab, whether it is for you or a gift for someone else. Out of these five, the 16e is easily the most pocket-friendly of the bunch. Both the 17 and the 17 Pro are roughly the same size and are super easy to handle with just one hand. But if you need a massive screen, you have two paths: the Air, which feels like a slab of glass, or the absolute unit that is the 17 Pro Max. For materials, the Air is the only one rocking a premium titanium frame. The rest actually use aluminium, and yup, that includes the high-end Pro models this time around. For the back panels, we have an unspecified kind of glass on the 16e and the 17, while the Air, 17 Pro, and 17 Pro Max all step up to ceramic shield. On those Pro models, that glass is really just a little window for wireless charging, since the rest of the body is that aluminium we mentioned. Weight-wise, the Air is definitely heavier than actual air at 5.7 ounces, but it is way lighter than the 17 Pro Max, which clocks in at a chunky 8.2 ounces. As for protection, every single one of these has an IP68 rating. That basically means you can take any of them for a dive down to 6 meters for up to 30 minutes, so a rainstorm or a drop in the toilet is not going to ruin your day. So as always, let's check in with the team and see who likes which design best.
The 17.
The 17.
The 17.
The 17.
The Air. What about you?
I'm gonna have to also go for the 17. So that covers the body, but let's flip these over and check out the glass. To keep things simple, the 16e has the smallest display in the group at 6.1 inches. The 17 and 17 Pro bump things up slightly to 6.3 inches, while the Air lands at 6.5 inches. If you want the biggest screen possible, the 17 Pro Max is the king at 6.9 inches. Every model here uses OLED tech, but the 16e misses out on LTPO. That means it is stuck at a 60 Hz refresh rate, which can feel a little choppy when you're scrolling. The rest of the lineup can shift anywhere from 1 Hz all the way up to 120 Hz, making them feel way smoother while actually saving you some battery life. The 16e also skips the anti-reflective coating that the others have, so you will definitely notice more glare on that one. In our typical high brightness test, where we simulate direct sunlight at over 100,000 lux, the 16e topped out at 879 nits, while the others all hovered around 1,100 nits. Same deal with peak brightness, the 16e stayed basically the same, but the rest of the family skyrocketed past 3,000 nits. So long story short, the 16e has the dimmest screen, while the others are going to be way easier to see when you are outside. You're getting Face ID across the board, but on the 16e, it is still tucked inside that old school notch, whereas the other models have all moved to the sleeker dynamic island. Now, for even more info on screen specs, feel free to pause the video right here. So the bottom line is that the 16e has the smallest and most dated display, while the rest give you modern tech for watching videos and gaming. It really just comes down to which size feels right for you between the Air, 17, 17 Pro, and 17 Pro Max. Now let's see if the speakers can actually hold their own. All these phones rock stereo speakers, with the exception of one model, and surprisingly, it is not the budget one. It is actually the Air. Instead of the usual setup, this one only has a single speaker and it is positioned at the top rather than at the bottom. Let's hear how that mono sound stacks up against the other phones.
I need all the wins, yeah. Ain't no L's, I gotta get it, no call and quits, yeah. Gotta keep on moving no matter how hard it gets. Yeah, better move out the way, cause I'm coming with harder hits. My head is as hard as a brick, but I'm harder than all of this. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. My heart on my sleeve, strength, see on my greed. That's how I get it, success ain't no giving. Some days I don't eat, I don't sleep. When I'm focused,
The iPhone Air is the weakest with its mono speaker, the 16e is louder but lacks bass depth, and the iPhone 17 sounds cleaner and more balanced. The 17 Pro steps things up with punchier bass, while the 17 Pro Max delivers the best overall sound with the most volume and depth. By the way, we were looking at the stats and noticed a ton of you are loving our videos, but you haven't joined the squad yet. So if you want more technical reviews served up simple, go ahead and smash that subscribe button down below. Oh, and we also dropped direct links for every single one of these iPhones in the description so that you can skip the typing. All right, let's get into the cameras, and you might be in for a surprise or two here. So for the main shooters, you're looking at the same megapixel count across the board, but the glass and sensors vary. The aperture is a tiny bit wider on the 16e, Air, and 17, but the sensor size is way smaller on the 16e and massive on the Pro and Pro Max, which means low light performance should be better, but we will get into that in just a moment. At first glance, they all look pretty much the same, and you could easily think that they're the exact same image. It's only when you look a bit closer that you start to notice small differences in color and exposure. Now, this is where things get interesting because the 16e and Air do not even have an extra camera. The 17, 17 Pro, and Pro Max all rock identical 48 megapixel ultra-wide lenses with the same field of view and sensor size. Quality-wise, the photos once again look almost identical. The only real difference is the lack of an ultra-wide camera on the 16e and Air, which is a clear downside since you'd have to stand much further back to get the exact same shot. If you're looking to zoom in, only the 17 Pro and 17 Pro Max have telephoto lenses to grab those far away shots. They both share a 48 megapixel periscope telephoto lens with 4x optical zoom. And just a heads up, they do not actually have 8x optical zoom like Apple claims. That is really just a crop on the sensor. And as you can see, they're the only two phones that stay sharp across all of the images, which gives them a clear and practical advantage when it comes to zoom. Portrait mode is where the 16e really falls behind. It struggles the most here with noticeably weaker edge detection, and at one times it even blurred the entire tree, while all the other phones handled the shot without issues. At 2x on the 16e, Air, and 17, and 4x on the 17 Pro and 17 Pro Max, the Pro models clearly deliver the best edge detection. This also highlights the core problem with the 16e. At the same 2x distance as the Air and 17, it completely failed to blur the background. The phone then prompts you to move closer, and once you do, it behaves as expected. But that is something to keep in mind though, because it's easy to think that you've captured a proper portrait shot only to realize later that there's no background blur at all. It's caught us out more than once. Moving over to video, the 16e, Air, and 17 can hit 4K at 60 FPS, but the 17 Pro models can crank that up to 4K at 120 FPS. Those Pro versions also give creators Pro level formats like ProRes, ProRes RAW, and Apple Log 2 to play with. As you can see, all the videos look very similar. The main difference is the color on the 16e, especially in the sky, which appears noticeably more saturated than the others that look more true to life. Cinematic mode, which gives you that sweet background blur, is totally MIA on the 16e and Air, while the rest can film in it at up to 4K 30 FPS. And once again, there's hardly any difference between the clips. Edge detection isn't particularly impressive on any of them, cutting into my nose when I turn sideways, and struggling with strands of hair. But it is still nice to have the option. If you want ultra-wide video, you're out of luck on the 16e and Air, but the other three can record 4K at 60 FPS without issues, and the results are absolutely identical across them all. Flipping these around, the 16e has a 12 megapixel front camera, while the rest of the family gets a shiny new 18 megapixel sensor. This new sensor is square, which allows these iPhones to snap either vertical or horizontal shots and videos without even rotating your phone. The main standout difference here is the narrower field of view on the 16e, which feels a bit limiting compared to the much wider shots from the others. Aside from that though, they all look great as iPhones consistently have very strong front cameras. With these front-facing cams, all of these iPhones can film in 4K at 60 FPS. And while it's not terrible, the 16e does show a noticeable difference in color, along with blown-out highlights on the building. The 17 and Pro models perform slightly better here. Low-light performance is solid across the board, and on their own, each device does a good job. When compared directly though, it is clear that the 16e and Air have slightly less accurate colors and a bit less sharpness than the 17 and Pro models. So overall, in terms of image quality, all of these phones deliver very similar results with only minor improvements on the Pro models. That said, the 16E and Air have clear limitations due to the lack of an ultra-wide lens, and the 16E also struggles with portrait mode and has a narrower field of view for selfies. And if zoom is an important factor for you, a Pro or Pro Max model is definitely the better choice. In the end, it really does come down to what matters most to you and what you will actually use. But now let's see if the raw power under the hood is actually enough for what you need. For the captains, we've got the A18 chip in the 16E, the A19 in the 17, and the top-tier A19 Pro in everything else. But there is a catch with the Air. Its version of the A19 Pro only has 5 GPU cores instead of the 6 you get in the Pro models. Still, it is supposed to beat the base A19 in the 17, which also runs on 5 GPU cores. For RAM, the 16E and 17 are packing 8GB, while the rest of the lineup steps it up to 12GB. Here's a quick breakdown of available storage configurations, types, and USB standards. Getting a bit more technical, the 16E and Air use Apple's own C1 and C1X silicon for cellular connection, while the rest of the crew is still sticking with Qualcomm. For wireless, you will find the new N1 chip in the Air, 17, 17 Pro, and 17 Pro Max, but the 16E misses out on that one. Another detail is that in the States, all these phones are strictly eSIM. In the rest of the world, though, they still have nano SIM support, except for the Air, which has 0 physical SIM support globally. If your carrier does not do eSIM, you're going to be holding an oversized iPod Touch or a tiny iPad. But to see what these iPhones can actually do, we put them through some real-world gaming tests with 15-minute sessions and cooldown breaks in between. First up, Grid Legends in graphics mode. Every phone here can run this console port, but only the 17 series is unlocked to hit 40 FPS. They all performed great and stayed near their max frame rates, but the temperatures were all over the place. The 16E stayed pretty chill at 108 degrees Fahrenheit, while the Air together with the 17 Pro Max basically turned into Pop-Tarts, hitting 117 degrees Fahrenheit. Next, we launched Wuthering Waves and cranked the graphics all the way up. They all hit a ceiling of 60 FPS, but the 16E struggled the most, dipping down to 35 FPS. The 17 Pro had a quick frame rate drop before bouncing back to around 60 FPS. Once again, the Air was the hottest one, reaching 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Moving on from gaming, we exported 99 photos in Lightroom. The 16E was the slowest across the finish line, but it was only about a minute behind the rest. Next, we rendered a 1-minute 4K 30 FPS video in CapCut. Here, every single phone was lightning fast, finishing in under a minute, and somehow the 16E was actually the quickest one. But now, let's check out some benchmarks. In Geekbench 6, for both single and multi-core scores, the 16E is at the bottom. The 17 shows a solid jump up, but the Air is actually stuck at the same level instead of being at the top with the Pros, even though they supposedly share the same chip. In 3D Mark's Wildlife Extreme stress test, the 16E expectedly had the lowest scores, but the Air actually performed way worse than the cheaper 17. The Pro models were the champions here, with the 17 Pro Max taking the crown for the best sustained performance, probably because its bigger body helps it dissipate heat better. In Antutu, it's the same story. The 16E is at the bottom, the Air scores almost exactly like the 17, and the Pros are sitting pretty at the top. So, to put it simply, the 16E gives you really solid real-world power, but it is definitely a step below the high-end models. The Pros are definitely the way to go for heavy gaming or video editing, though the 17 handles that stuff pretty well too. The real oddball is the Air, which performed more like the base 17 despite Apple calling its chip a Pro. It actually got beat by the cheaper 17 in a few tests, likely because the Air is so thin that it just cannot handle the heat. But now let's see which features you actually get on each of these. Right now, all these iPhones are rocking iOS 26.2. While Apple never officially puts a hard expiration date on their phones, you can usually count on about 7 years of OS and security updates. That means if you pick one of these up today, you are pretty much set until 2032. When it comes to the actual look and feel, every model features that same Windows Aero-style liquid glass interface. It even stretches into apps like the camera, which has gone for a super clean and minimalistic vibe. vibe. Let's be real, Siri used to be a really big deal on iPhones, but nowadays, even though Apple is certainly not leading the pack in the AI race anymore, the new Apple Intelligence rollout has finally added some genuinely useful tricks. Siri is actually helpful again with ChatGPT and Google integration, which lets you do voice, camera, or even screenshot-based searches. You're also getting way more options for personalization and those handy physical upgrades like the action button and camera control. Just keep in mind that the 16E misses out on that camera control button, and it also does not support the always-on display. Alright, let's wrap this up with our final category. Let's talk batteries. This is one department where the 16E is actually not at the bottom of the barrel. That title belongs to the Air because it is so thin it only packs a 3,149 mAh battery, while the 17 Pro Max goes all the way up to a massive 5,088 mAh in the eSIM-only version. We do not have any official word on charging speeds with cables, but for wireless, the 16E only supports 7.5 watts and totally misses out on MagSafe. You know, the magnets on the back. The rest of the lineup is way faster, hitting 20 or 25 watts. Every model here supports reverse wired charging, but here is a little secret. You can also wirelessly top up a connected MagSafe power bank while the phone itself is plugged in. Except on the 16E, obviously. Just keep in mind that this is strictly for power banks, so don't expect to charge your AirPods on the go. In our new exhaustive battery drain test, we calibrated all iPhones to 500 nits and turned all battery-saving features off. We ran a 9-app loop starting with an hour of Instagram scrolling assisted by our awesome Versus bot. After that, we hit 30 minutes of 4K video recording, then an hour of web browsing, 1 hour of Google Maps navigation, followed by an hour of Subway Surfers. Next, another hour of YouTube streaming, an hour of music streaming, and an hour of video calling. Finally, another half hour of video recording and one last hour of Temple Run. As expected, the phone with the smallest battery drained first. The Air said goodbye at 9 hours and 9 minutes. Next was the 17 at 11 hours and 6 minutes, followed by the 16E almost an hour later at 11 hours and 59 minutes. The 17 Pro landed in 4th place at 12 hours and 6 minutes, while the 17 Pro Max lasted the longest at 13 hours and 39 minutes. In our charging test using a 100 watts brick, the phone with the smallest battery was actually not the fastest to finish. That crown went to the 17, which crossed the line in just 1 hour and 14 minutes, with the 17 Pro right on its heels. Next up was the 17 Pro Max, followed by the 16E. Believe it or not, the slowest of the bunch was the Air, taking 1 hour and 44 minutes to hit 100%, even though it has the least amount of battery to fill. So how do these stack up when it's time to pay? The 16E is Apple's budget play, and while $599 is still a chunk of change, it is the cheapest way into the ecosystem. The 17 starts at $799, while the Air bumps you up to $999. For the Pro models, the smaller one lands at $1,099, and the Pro Max is a full $1,199. That means for the price difference between the 16E and the 17 Pro Max, you could literally buy two 16Es, one for you and one for your sleep paralysis demon. To wrap things up, the iPhone 16E is the right choice if you simply want a reliable phone with excellent battery life that stays affordable and you are fine with a standard camera experience. The iPhone Air is not designed as a productivity powerhouse, but instead prioritizes design, ergonomics, and overall handling. For most people, the iPhone 17 is the easiest recommendation, mainly thanks to its noticeable display and camera upgrades, which strike the best overall balance. The iPhone 17 Pro delivers the highest end experience Apple currently offers in a compact form factor, while the iPhone 17 Pro Max is the clear pick if you want that same top-tier performance paired with a larger display and the longest battery life in the lineup. But if you're curious how some of these iPhones stack up against the older models, you can check out our full review right here. We put the last 4 base models to the test. And if you are hunting for that perfect mix of compact power and a triple camera setup, we also have a video on the latest 4 Pro models right over here. But if your vibe is having a Pro iPhone that is totally maxed out, you can hit this link to check out our review of the last Pro Max models. And before you go charge your phone before it decides to shut down on its own, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up and hit subscribe, as we're always testing new devices to help you make the best choice. We'll see you in our next video, and until then, take care.